Hey, welcome to another episode of Electrical Theology. I'm your host, Charles, and we like to get into the esoteric life coaching here. And one of the best ways we can do that is by unfolding the moment with an undefended heart. And what does that mean? It means that the ego's got to take a back seat for a while if you choose to manifest, understand where you are and what direction you're going in life. All right? So let's get on with this. So by taking responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and emotions is going to be the action needed to take or required or chosen upon to move you forward or align with the unfolding moment, which is just electricity. Call it whatever other name you want to give it. It's just energy flowing for me. And so you can go with this energy, you can go against this energy, get out ahead of it or get behind it. This is all relative to your perception of life. And so for me, my perception is fairly simple. Simplicity is coming from the heart, and complexity is coming from the ego. So I like to take the path of least resistance. Although there's nothing wrong or right about resistance, it does help us build up strength or build strength up within us so that we can handle more electricity coming through our bodies. Even though our bodies themselves are electrical, it is an apparatus that is slowed down electricity so that the divine energy can come through us at a higher frequency. And the more we're open and unfolding those moments without the ego, we then can take in more electricity through us, which then gains us access to higher frequencies, which with higher frequencies we get more information, or that we have the ability to form more ions consciously and have the abundant life you want on this earth, or this realm. All right? So tonight's topic then is problem, solution, action. And so problem basically is one of your life experiences or life events we've talked about in past videos. And we'll get more in detail about these 6 steps that I have that y'all can go into any frame within the 21 frames and change those frames, reframe those frames. Now, look at these frames, or these portals, as I like to call them, or gateways, or doorways, portals, whatever word you want to give them, wormholes, depending if you're left or right brain. For me, what I've done is just frozen in time, if you will, a film, and we're looking at this film frame by frame. We've just stopped the universe within 21 frames, and these 21 frames repeat themselves and double themselves and triple themselves. So 21 is just 3 7, 3 times 7, 3 rows of 7. And we can double these rows, and the 21 just equals 3. We can double that, and then we end up with 6 and then 9. So we can talk about the 3, 6, and 9 within the universal framework, but right now I think it's a little advanced for the beginner or those just trying to understand this basic grid that I'm showing you, the secret grid. So problems are just issues not yet resolved. So that's where resolve comes in, which is the solution part. Solution is that your soul needs a new revolution, evolution. It needs more love. And what solution basically means is to loosen, to untie, to dissolve. Now we'll get into some of these other words and breaking them down, but I want you to really pay close attention of how I play with these words, where I can untie them, I can dissolve them, I can loosen them up, I can rearrange them any way I want. So hopefully this helps you rearrange, dissolve, and untie what you've attached to in your life, all right? So why do problems exist, or why do they persist? It's because there is no owner. If you want to be the owner of your own ship, your own vessel, to take that current through, that divine electricity through your body and program it to do what you want with it, or what you choose or committed to doing with it, we need an owner. We talked about last video that energy is moving, but you don't exist until you are allowed to possess, if you will, temporarily energy in a moment, an unfolding moment. That moment, however, will continue on, but in that moment we can freeze a frame, if you will, and in that moment we freeze that frame, we own that energy, right? We're the owner of the energy anyway, but we got to take responsibility for creating what we create. We're the creators of our own ship. This is what leads us to having happy relationships. It's how we relate to other people's vessels or energies or output or inputs or perceptions in life, right? So if you want the problems in your life to leave, then we're going to have to take ownership of how it is you perceive things, right? If you don't like what you're receiving in life, change the transmission. Right? We're going to transmit something else to receive something else. If you want to receive the same life, then transmit the same thing. Again, take ownership of it, and you're able then to change that energy. All right, we've been talking about the grid temporarily here. I'm not going to go over this. We'll touch on it briefly for an example, but we've talked about this in the last few videos, and we've talked about the ionic grid, which is the same thing. I'm just expounding upon it. But for now, we're going to look at how to understand, once we are in one of these 21 frames, that we can take any of these frames or gateways or portals and bring through and change the energy so that we can form it in a new way that is beneficial or that we are aware of, that we choose to have in our life. Right? Making sense? So these steps, right, to take an ownership. In order to take ownership, then the energy can come to us. The energy doesn't know where to go if we don't have a ship for it to sit upon. Right? So life experience or event. Now I've talked about these steps within multiple videos, but I'm going to spend a little time and focus on them. Right? We went broad, now we're going specific. Because we start out broad with our present state, and if we want to go specific, then we have to get specific steps. Right? So broad to specific, and present state to desired state. Right? Desired state, in order to get the desired state of this life you want in your mind and your soul and whatever this is for you, then we need to be specific about it. Right? We can be broad at the start, but if you want things to be more specific, then we have to be more specific for that desire to come through. So, life experience event. These things are sort of the same thing for me, but they do have their own unique connotations. Experience is that we are experiential beings, and basically we're experientialists, and we're just here to have experiences. Now these experiences are going to have events, right? And these events will eventually lead to us taking action or reacting to those situations or events, right? So this is sort of the order that we can use to change or put into order a change within the transmission that we're sending out to the universe, which is just our higher God self, that then we can then rearrange these letters, numbers, thoughts, and then put them in a order that then gains us what it is we're desiring, from the present state to the desired state. Right? So we have life experience. So then once we have this life experience, our thoughts come into motion in that moment and then give it an interpretation. Now, if you're not willing to take responsibility for an interpretation, then you'll listen to other people's interpretations. And again, live on those ions. Interpretation is interpret the ions. So if you want to interpret your life through other people's visions and versions, then that's going to be what the results you get. But if you are ready to take ownership from your life event or experiences, then we are going to have to learn and understand and be aware of how we interpret. Meaning, what is the thought that we're giving this outside influence or even internal life experience, right? The thought that we give it, this is the beginning of what I'm calling Genesis thought, where we begin to think. And once we think, this becomes a thought, and the thought becomes a thing, and then the thing becomes a real thing, right? It becomes a no thing into the real thing, or the some thing, right? Which is a person, place, or event, or life experience. So once we interpret this, however you interpret it, you in effect give it meaning. So this meaning is, what do you mean by this interpretation, right? Meaning is definition. You're defining the ions in a specific order or state. So therefore, your mind's going to take on this state. And you're going to then, this meaning that you're giving it then is going to have, or is going to cause you to create habits. And you get these habits by being reactionary or an action of these ions. So you interpreted these ions, and then you define these ions, and then you act on these ions. Right? Again, energy, God, universe, I don't care what you call it, it's just electricity for me, electromagnetism. So once we have that life experience or event, then we're going to interpret those ions, how they came in, and we're going to fill it up with words. Okay? My encouragement here is to feel what you're feeling without the words. Allow yourself to feel that, and we talked about it in videos before, that when you just sit and feel it, then the energy is going to flow. But if you add definement to this, a defining, mint means mind, so a definement means that you're minting, right? Almost like you're minting coinage, right? You're giving it a stamp of your approval that says, I'm going to go down this way of thinking. I'm going to focus on this thinking, and it's going to manifest. Right? Subconsciously, we're doing this, but we want to become aware, right? We need to make the conscious choice and commit to it that we are here on our own volition, and that it's up to us to have the life we want, right? So once, in effect, so this interpretation creates an effect. So effect comes before cause. It's not cause and effect, it is an effect, because in effect, you are interpreting this so it has an effect on you. This effect is because you gave it a meaning, because you defined those ions, which then framed them. And so this cause is that you frame this action, and that action became habits. And those habits then became behavior. So then you be, have, and do. Everything you have, everything you do is going to be because of the prescription or the subscription of the meaning and the definition you gave of that life experience. Make sense? Right? So in order to be what you want to be in this life, to have the things you want in this life, and to do what you want to do in this life, what you choose to do, right, then you're going to have to redefine this. But if you don't, if you use other people's meanings, then you're going to have an outcome, right? So you have become your thought. Right? The thought is what you defined it because you gave it meaning, because you interpreted it. Is this making sense, guys? Right? If not, leave me a comment. So these are the stages that we are going to then use. We're going to put one of these in each one of these frames, if you will. We have who you are and how you are is because you had a life event or experience. And then you interpreted that experience or event. And then you, in effect, gave it meaning and defined that event. So you began to define your life in this very moment. You canonized it. You solidified it, if you will, in your brain. And so that focused it in your brain or your mind. And so you started minting a reality or behavior. And this behavior created habits, and these habits then became an outcome of that event. So you had the event, and then there's going to be another outcome to that event. The life experience itself was an event, and it had an inception to completion. But now it's up to us to create an aware, conscious thought process, right, that comes with love, right? This is going to be the solution part that we talked about earlier. But as you can see, we can take all those 6 stages and apply them to any framework. And this gives us more clarity of what direction to go into or to start moving and being motivated. Right? Now, because this is problem, action, solution, right? We talk about our problems, the life events or whatever this is for you, and then we need to look for a solution and what actions do we take. So the first thing we need to ask is, how can I resolve? Right? Solution is just solve. It means the word comes from the root word solve, to solve. Now, solve itself is an anagram for love, right? Loves. And then we can revolve, and then eventually we solve. So basically, to resolve something is to resolve it, right? And to resolve, it's like a mystery, right? Or a puzzle we have to resolve. And the way we resolve is we go back and look at the clues. Right? And these clues are these 6 steps over here. Okay, how did I define this life event? What interpretation did I give it? This effect is causing me to act in a certain way. Right? So we can break it down. We can go back to the clues. back to the scene of the crime as you were. So ask first, how can I resolve, relove, revolve, or solve, or resolve what we're experiencing? And this is how we're going to redefine or undefine how we defined this stage over here that gave us meaning. Right? Your life has a meaning and purpose. Well, the reason you may not know what your purpose or meaning of life is because you're still trying to resolve it by other people's definitions. So this definition's got to come from an undefinement and a redefinement, if that makes sense. So we're going to ask, okay, first, right? This is a resolution stage. So how can I resolve this? Meaning, how can I resolve? But we want to look at this as how can we re-love ourselves. Right? This stage is very important because the thought that you're giving something, is it coming from love or fear or less than or lack? So in order to resolve this, if you want a different outcome, then you have to go back to where is it you're not loving yourself? Where are you not relating to your own self? And that answer is going to be because you're not taking ownership of the problem. You're still blaming and faulting other people or playing the victim. All right? So the second question we need to ask then is, what actions can I choose to resolve, relove, revolve, solve? Same thing. So first we got how can I resolve it? And the second question to take action on then is, what action can I choose? So this action is where we come into here then. What action can I take? Well, I need to go back and take any of these frames that we've sort of taken a picture of the universe, right? And we just stopped 21 of a billion of these frames, right, to our entire movie. I can say, am I ready to live my dream? Right? I can just bring in the 6 questions, all right? Life experience, life event, right? What am I experiencing right now that will lead me to my dream? Right? What is my interpretation of my dream? Right? What is the interpretation I'm giving? Am I ready? Right? Am I ready to live my dream? Right? What interpretation and what meaning am I giving that? So the meaning can be, yes, I'm ready to live it because I want to live. Sort of like if you see here, my shirt, it's just a fun shirt I'm wearing today. It says RV there yet because I like RVs. Right? My goal is to just work with RVs, travel around with RVs. It's fun. I get to see things. I can film wherever I go with this, and eventually that's going to be my fun stage of life. I've had many fun stages, and right now, because I mentioned a few videos ago that I got rid of a lot of my businesses. I closed them down. I've sold some of the other ones. I've stopped doing it because I'm ready for a new process. I'm ready for a higher frequency. I'm ready to dissolve. I'm ready to untie myself, right, from things I tied myself into consciously. And now those things I'm not interpreting them as fun anymore. And so the first thing I do, and what I'm showing y'all to do, and how I've been able to do what I do, is because I'm in this process. Right? And this process can lead you to, well, what do I do next? Right? Instead of freaking out about the future, what do you do next? Well, all this that I'm showing you is the framework, is the step-by-steps to how to figure out and to move and motivate. Motivation is just move the ions. And once I move these ions, then I can spiral these ions, right? And once I spiral these ions, that's me putting them in an order. And that order is an event or an experience. And that experience, the interpretation is the spiraling. And then the spiral then gives it meaning, and that's going to create a cause. And then that cause is going to be a habit of energy. So I'm habitually bringing in energy in an order in which I told it to come in. So I'm not going to freak out and go, oh my, what am I going to do next? I have a lot of people, what are you doing next? What are you doing next? I'm always open to the flow. And the more I can disconnect and untie and dissolve things that I'm no longer enjoying, once I untie that, then my energy is free. And now I can see clearly. And now I can interpret clearly. And now I can put into motion and put things in order more clearly. Right? The universe has always and will always, which is me and my higher self, will always show me the way. But my old tied up self has to untie itself. And once it unties itself, that emotion, that energy in motion, begins to unfold in that moment. Making sense now? Hopefully so. So each one of these is just, am I ready to live my dream? Okay, what outcome do I want if I'm living my dream? Where do I see myself? In an RV, sitting on the ocean, up on the mountains, wherever I choose to go. Right? I can look at any of these outcomes. I don't have to solidify them right now. I don't have to be very specific, but I can just say, traveling around in an RV, I don't really necessarily need full time, but I can go whenever I want, however I want. Right? And everything will always be there because I have the ability to change energy, right? Divine electromagnetism, and refine it, define it into specific things, be it money, cars, RVs, people, places, or things. So by understanding this grid, it gives you the ability to create the pathways to move ions and the form in which you want to form them into. So let's take another example. Are you ready for big changes? Well, I just told you I'm making big changes, right? So when I make big changes, I can expect big results because the amount of energy I'm freeing up, that energy now, we'll say I freed up 100 watts of energy, I now have 100 watts to create something. But because I've been able to upgrade the wattage, now it's a 200 watt light bulb, now I have, because I did what I did and I freed it all up, I exponentially grow. My spirals increase in amplitude. Make sense? So now I have more energy because I've chosen to upgrade my soul by overhauling my physical life. Gotcha? So yeah, I can say, okay, am I ready for big changes? Okay, what life experience do I want? What events do I want to do? Do I want to go on RV rallies? Do I want to go by the beach for a week or wherever? Take friends and family on these trips. Go visit friends and families on these trips. Do some mooch docking. Right? Do some boondocking. Right? Just be out in nature in the middle of the stars. Right? So I can say, okay, this is the life event I'm choosing. And now I'm ready. So now I can give the interpretation. The interpretation is space. Right? Being in the open space under the stars. Just releasing myself from the thoughts that I think I am. Those thoughts that I think I am that I no longer want to be, I can open up. I don't need to go beyond where I'm at because I'm always right here. So I can unfold. So these changes that I'm making is basically unfolding or unraveling that which I've wound together. And so now I'm ready to unwind these thoughts and then create new thoughts. Right? Hopefully this is making sense, guys. But do your best. Go through these 5 and understand these 6 stages. I said 5, but there's 6 or 6 of them. There's more, but I'm condensing this stuff down to make it simple. And so apply each one of these to each one of these frames or portals, because the more you open up and understand and are aware of these portals, then you have the ability to start making wise choices. Now in the next video, we'll talk more about the wise choices, or will, wisdom, and action. You know, I'll break that down a little more to another framework. So we can apply these frameworks. I know we're layering these things, but the more you understand them, they become second nature. And before you even make a thought to an outside influence or a life experience or an event, instead of reacting, we can then respond by saying, okay, I'm responsible for my thought that I'm about to think about this life event. Now we start planning out, because part of the plan, it's the path, remember, of this and that. So now I'm part of the plan. Now I can start planning out. Not in concrete, right? I can just make plans as they come about. Or my mind says, hey, let's go do this. My heart says this. My soul says, hey, let's go do this. So I can unfold that moment and go do it without restrictions. That's true freedom. That's sentiency. And so having the ability at any given time to say, hey, here's what I want, I'm no longer reacting to what's happening to me, is that I'm in charge now and taking responsibility for what is about to happen to me. Because I'm responsible for the thought that I'm thinking that's about to become real in this reality. Cool? All right, guys, that's about all I have for you this week. But what I'll just show you here is a quick thing. I just sort of combined this. So I can insert this layer, this little, what looks like a transformer. I can insert this into these. And each one of these are life experience, interpretation, event, cause, behavior outcome. So again, I'm just giving you a symbol here. These are words, which are symbols. And now I'm giving you another symbol. I can just take the symbol and just drag it down over any of these and then go life event, interpretation, meaning, cause, habit, behavior, outcome. Right? So whatever behaviors you want or want to undo, then we have to look at the step beforehand and go, okay, if this is my behavior, I can then look at the cause. What's the cause? It comes from the effect of my giving it meaning. You're the only one who gives your life meaning. No one can give your life meaning except you, because you're the one defining it. So once you undefine what is no longer yours and begin to define it and redefine it, then you're the cause of your outcomes and behaviors. Making sense? I know it sounds scary to some that, oh my gosh, you got to take responsibility for your thoughts, actions, and emotions. And being able to problem solve and take the right actions. Right is not opposite of wrong. It's your right path. Right? All right, guys. That'll do it for me today. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I'm not seeing enough likes up there, so I'm going to manifest a whole bunch of likes. So like. And then subscribe if you want to know when these things come out. Hit the notification bell. And I will see you next time of how to drive, thrive, and survive life without a job. All right? Take care.